Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Hold on to the edge of your seats because you are in for quite the ride. It's time for the Granada Forum Radio Show. Right now, live on air with your host, Granada, Wendy.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Granada Forum Radio program. I have lost my voice. By the way, it is March 2nd. It's the first Friday of March, and today's the 2nd. And so we're very happy to be here tonight. We have a great guest. We have Gary Arnold coming on at 7:30 with us, and have some fun with him. All kinds of good stuff. By the way, this is Revolution Radio. We are the #1 commercial-free, listener-supported internet talk radio station in the world, and we are located at freedomslips.com. That's freedomslips, SLIPS.com. If you'd like to go to the homepage and leave equivalent to a cup of coffee, we appreciate it to keep the programming on the air. Or check out Nighthawk Special for a $100 donation and get like 3,500 seeds and how to grow, plant, store, and etc. So we'd like to thank Mr. Nighthawk for that. I'd like to thank my co-host, Mr. Nick Pearson. Nick, are you there?
He's muted.
Yes, okay. And my wonderful producer.
Okay, yes.
And my wonderful producer, Mr. Richard Kane.
Hello.
Yeah, I got to stop doing the double mute thing with my microphone.
No problem. By the way, I just want to do a couple of quick announcements, and then we're going to get into some stuff. By the way, we are at freedomslips.com. If you're lucky, you get a hold of us at 206-855-3056. That's 206-855-3056, or try freedomslips.com. By the way, the New Living Expo is going to be at the San Mateo Event Center, and they're going to be held by Ken, good guy, April 27th, 28th, and 29th. That's April 27th, 28th, and 29th. And that's 2018 at the San Mateo Event Center. That's the San Mateo Event Center. So if you go to www.newlivingexpo.com, that's newlivingexpo.com, and they'll be more than happy to have fun with you and help you out. And that's up in the Bay Area at San Mateo Event Center. And that's April 27, 28, 29th, 2018. New Living Expo. That's newlivingexpo.com, newlivingexpo.com. We also like to thank the people at Conscious Life who are very nice to us, gave us passes, had a lot of fun there a couple weeks back. If you're looking for books or tapes from the Conscious Life Expo, go to consciouslifeexpo.com, consciouslifeexpo.com, and you can get books and tapes from them. Nice people. We will be, by the way, next week we will be at the Natural Health Product Show, which we're looking forward to, interviewing various people from different types of natural health products, and that's holistic health products and all kinds of organic food and wonderful stuff at the Natural Health Product Show, Expo West, and that will be at the Anaheim Convention Center, and that will take place on next week on March 9th. We will be there live from 7 to 9 at the Marriott. Looking forward to that one for the Natural Health Product Show, Expo West. We want to thank them for everything they do for us, too. They're really good people. By the way, we will be at the Natural Health Solution Expo, September 22nd and 23rd, 2018, and it's at the LAX Marriott. There is a phone number, 562-212-3479. That's 562-212-3479. Or you can probably go to www.naturalhealthsolutionsexpo.com, and they should come up on a website, no problem. That's naturalhealthsolutionsexpo.com. That's September 22nd and 23rd, 2018. And we will be filming that. That will be interesting for us. We haven't done that for a while, so it'll be a lot of fun, as well as do a show Friday Night Live from the Marriott, probably. And then September 22nd, 23rd, we will be there filming. So that'll be interesting to say the least. That's what's on our agenda for now. And by the way, John, are you there by chance?
Yes, I am, darling. And,
okay, well, John, we'll let you be the first up at bat to give us a little commentary before our guest comes on. So go right ahead.
Well, some of the people that are already with us, like Robert and Nick, and possibly our producer, director, Richard, have received copies of the email that I sent out today, which shows a picture in color at the top of the page of a boy kneeled over and placing in very neat rows a series of human fetuses, aborted unborn human babies that are being put out on a brick deck to dry out in the sun before their parts, including the kidneys, will be harvested for enhancements for providing sweeter flavors to beverages and certain processed foods. And although I don't mention in my article the several companies that were mentioned by Deborah Tavares were mentioned in some of the articles, but as I also mentioned in this article that I sent out today, Deborah Tavares deserves the entire credit for providing me with the information about the harvesting of kidneys from aborted unborn human babies. However, when I followed up on her research, nothing at all could have prepared me for the most distasteful and grotesque shock when I came upon the color photograph at the top of the page that I sent out in this email, where apparently a boy is at work, as I mentioned already, lining up hundreds of tiny bodies that were once unborn human babies who should have been given the same life to right that we have. While I can recall the morbid pictures of the skulls of the killing fields taken in Cambodia during the time of the Pathet Lao, it's hard for me to imagine what could be worse until viewing the above aforementioned color photograph showing hundreds of dead unborn human babies. It's hard for me to believe that human decency, humanity, and respect for life has reached such a low and decadent level. Let's save the whales, but how about saving human life? And at the bottom of the page, I provide additional credit as to where I found this information. For those of you that might want to check it out on the internet, if you go to the phrase, just type in the phrase, list of companies using fetal cells from aborted babies to flavor. I will repeat that once more. List of companies using fetal from aborted babies to flavor. And this is also found in the Health Clinic issue for February 6th. Oh, wait a minute. I may have made an error there. I think it's February 16th, 2011. But that was an error that I just caught now. I apologize for that. So this goes back a few years, and I'll double check that, and if I'm wrong, I'll let you guys know next week. What was also disturbing, I came across an article, Wendy, on Sandy Hook, and that's mentioned briefly in the same email article. And apparently, a book was written that was later banned from being published, but you can find it on the internet, as I indicated in that email. And what is rather shocking is when I went to the appendices in the back of the book, it had a full copy of the manual produced and published by FEMA in confidence, a confidential document, which in its title said basically FEMA drill for Sandy Hook, and it gives the date, which was December 14, 2012, and the date that it was published in Washington, D.C. as an official document 2 months earlier. And there's no doubt whatsoever this whole thing was a hoax. There was further documentation that none of the 20 children were ever born or ever died because no Social Security records could be found on any of the births or deaths for the 20 children, as well as the 7 adults who were also involved, supposedly. There was further research on the residence of the families of the alleged children. That became rather fishy because practically all of these so-called families were people that were basically outsiders that only moved into the town of Newtown just a few years before this staged event. So the more you get into this, and then when you find out that several years before the alleged massacre, the school building where allegedly the shootings took place had been closed down due to asbestos and other toxins in the buildings, and so obviously the students were moved to another location. You find in the FBI's annual report for homicides in the town of Newtown and the neighboring town of Monroe, where the students were probably being bused to at another facility, there's no indication of any homicides at all in both of those towns. So the complete thing is a fraud, but the American public and even the NRA has fallen for it hook, line, and sinker. And as a result, we lost our AR-14 sales here in the state of California, and the manual that I alluded to is probably very similar to the manual that was written for the most recent shooting in Florida. So more is going to be surfacing. So
right.
Basically, that's what I wanted to share with you guys.
Well, yeah, and even think about this. I mean, link that article, especially with that photograph that you had. You know, we already know that the New World Order, globalist, secret society, inner circle people. We know they're Satanists. We know they're into child sacrifice. We know they're into eating the young, eating little kids like that because, you know, they think it gives them some kind of great power. That's been shown through many writings. Ted Gunderson had talked about it.
That's right.
There's been writings going back for ages. If people want to really get into the occult and learn about any of that, and look at what's going on with some of these school shootings. What are they doing? They're sacrificing the kids again. You know, for whatever reason. And the elephant in the room on the shootings, of course, is the fact that none of the mainstream media will ever talk about the major amount of pharmaceuticals and vaccines and the effects that all these drugs are having on people's minds, you know, along with the chemtrails in the air, the chemicals in the water and all of that. Yes. And, you know, this is all really it's converging. If people really pay attention to any of it, it's all really converging on a singular point. They are enacting some global satanic ritual, some kind of very global satanic kind of event, and they're starting to put us all into it because they're using even what was it, Coca-Cola or Pepsi or somebody was using unborn fetus to sweeten their drinks.
They deny it, but both of those companies apparently were.
Right. And look what happened with the cows when they started feeding other cows. You know, we wound up with mad cow disease that eats away at the brain. So now they're going to start feeding people, other people. You know, I don't know what effect it had on animals. 100 years ago, but I'm pretty sure the effects couldn't have been very good. And now they're gonna force it on people in today's society, in contemporary society, and they're gonna figure this isn't gonna have any effect at all. At least that's what they're promoting. But they know it's going to. They know it's going to have an adverse effect on everybody. They know that the psychotropic drugs are going to have an adverse effect. They know the vaccines, vaccinating kids up to the time they're 6 years old with 83 vaccines. I mean, they pop out of their mom's hoo-hoo, and they don't even have a chance to wipe them down clean, and they're already jabbing them with needles.
Yeah. By the way,
well, hold on. And plus, they're spraying us down with aluminum, barium, strontium, and lithium at this point. We got the BPHA, the bisphenol, coming out of the plastics into all that bottled water. We got the GMOs, which we don't even know what the effects of the GMOs are at this point. And so, kids who are being born now, not even in my generation, but the kids coming up from like the 90s and up, I want to even say in the 80s and up, have been assaulted with a chemical assault that's like unbelievable. Their bodies are not designed to handle it. This is almost like living in Brave New World, where they would put the kids in the pods and they would shoot them up full of whatever chemical or alcohol or whatever it was that would make them conform to their class of citizenry that they needed at the time. And so we wound up with a bunch of mental patients. And if somebody is, when they're born, there are people when they're born, their brains are just wired wrong. They have a chemical imbalance. I mean, that's already been proven. And yet now you want to assault them with all this other stuff, all these different chemicals and medications, whatever, and you think they're not going to go off the rail. This is what the globalists live for, because they can exploit the hell out of it. Yes.
Now, the one thing that I wanted to add to your list, and you're right on track on everything you said, Eric, in an urgent message I received from Deborah Tavares today, she mentioned frequencies. She was on Dr. Bill Deagle's program today.
Right, and I forgot to mention that's another aspect of it, is the frequency assault.
Right, and this is, of course, is all designed to reduce the human population on this planet. And I think there's a possibility that Deborah might be willing to come on the program sooner rather than later because of this new evidence and information that she just.
Yeah, we're gonna give her a call this week and schedule her. Don't worry, John. We'll let you know immediately. Yeah, whatever date she picks, we'll put her on.
Great.
Right. So can you imagine? I mean, that picture. I'm definitely going to put that up. If anybody wants to, who's listening or in the chat room, wants to take a look at it, I'm going to put it up on our Facebook group. And I want, if Facebook decides that they want to take issue with it, well, let them. I don't really care. So go to Facebook, go to the Granada Forum Facebook group. It'll probably be posted up by tomorrow sometime. And it will burn in your brain to see what they're doing, lining up all those what would have been little kids, but they never quite made it that far.
This is as morbid as the Nazi Holocaust and the killing fields.
I think it's worse. I actually think it's worse because the Nazi Holocaust had a point. Twisted and demented as it was, and horrific as it was. The Holocaust had a point of simple extermination. That was all that they were interested in, is getting rid of groups of people and making everything pure for the
Aryan race,
the pure bloods, the Aryan race. And this isn't even that. This is like dumping a gallon of poison into a pond just because you want to kill one fish. It's going to take everybody out, except they're trying to kill everybody out.
Yeah.
This is a very deliberate.
This is non-selective. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a very deliberate thing of beings, because their satanic ideology says, well, no, it's perfectly okay it's perfectly okay if we poison the entire pond just to get to our goals, whatever their goals may be, which we already know is global dominance. And screw the consequences of it. The end justifies the means, even if it kills ourselves. Oh, wait a minute. We can't do that because they're not the ones who are eating this stuff. I guarantee these people like George Soros are not chugging down Pepsi and Coca-Cola's late people.
No.
I know it. You look at that picture and you say to yourself, I wonder if there could have been a Nobel Peace Prize winner amongst those, or a president of the United States, or some great humanitarian who invented something that made life so much easier for the rest of humanity.
Actually, what crossed my mind, considering the low bar that it now takes to get a Nobel Peace Prize, I'm wondering if somebody who won a Nobel Peace Prize actually endorsed this.
Well, yes.
So, somebody who had globalist backing, who could have been an Einstein, decided to get behind this because, he could keep his credentials and be considered one of the most brilliant people on the planet. That's the really other insidious part of this, is that people who would probably never get behind something as really horrific as this is, get behind it because they don't want to lose their credentials. They don't want to be kicked out of whatever society it is. They don't want to be. They could be Stephen Hawking and want to get moved out of the academic circles that they're in because suddenly somebody with a whole lot of money and less smarts decides that you're not pulling your weight to push our agenda. Boom, you no longer have your credentials, you have no tenure, and you're stupid. So everything that you ever said, it really is like watching 1984. You go down the memory hole, and that's the end of your career. And they don't want that, so they'll do anything to keep it. So they'll let things like this slide, and matter of fact, maybe even stamp their name on it if necessary, to bow down to the people who could destroy them. Instead of standing up and going like, I don't care if you destroy me. I'm pushing back,
right.
And we need more people to push back, especially people in academia, because those are right now some of the people at this point, because they are just pushing the agenda only because they want to keep their jobs, only because they want to keep tenure, they'll keep pushing the Common Core programs that are going on, which by the way are now a federal program, which I got into a heated discussion with somebody today about, because they thought that the states can still make up their own minds whether or not they want to push this education program. It's like, no, they don't have a choice anymore. In case you hadn't heard, it's now a federal program. So people in academia will go along with whatever program it is just to keep their standing, including something like what was in that picture. Look what happened in Germany and Russia. Every time somebody went up against the state, first thing they said was, you have a mental problem. You're mentally defective. We need to put you in a re-education camp. And if that don't work, well, guess what? You're probably going to wind up in a hole somewhere fertilizing the next rice crop or the next corn crop or whatever else they happen to be planting over the top of your dead body at the same time, at that moment.
Yeah.
So, people really do need to take a look at that picture and really understand what it means.
Can people go on the web, John? Can people go on the website, or Nick, go on a website and find out what companies are using this? It's called Seminex or something.
Seminex.
Correct.
Here's the problem. I've got to advise with a word of caution. A lot of these large companies like Nabisco, Maxwell House Coffee, Nestle, PepsiCo, Coca-Cola, whatever, are now becoming aware that this information is being exposed. And so they're hiring their attorneys and PR departments and advertising departments to put out a lot of false information and disclaimers and letters of denial that they've had nothing to do with this whatsoever. And the way in which they write their statements is rather clever. They say there are no fetus tissues in any of our foods or beverages, when in reality what we're talking about are the taste and flavor enhancers that are placed mainly in the sweeteners, artificial sweeteners for like the diet drinks and the processed foods. So they're able to write statements in such a manner that it makes you think as if they themselves have nothing to do with this, when in reality those ingredients are in those products. So you can find these lists, but the lists are going to have rebuttals to them, and you have to sort of make your own decision.
So where can you find these lists?
Well, Deborah Tavares gave that information out on last week's program for those of you.
Yeah.
Okay, is that on www.stopthecrime.net?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and also if anybody wants to listen to the show again, you can go to our Facebook group, and you can punch it up. It's already been posted on there. It's been posted on our YouTube channel. So if you look up Granada Forum and Deborah Tavares, you should be able to find it. So if she mentioned it, it's on there. You can listen to the re-listen to the show and find the information.
And of course, look for the keyword that she used regarding the company that makes this enhancers here in the state of California.
Hey, John, your phone's starting to act up, and then also Gary tried to call in. Do you want me to call him?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
John, imagine that. Your phone is starting to act up right now. We're really getting into a good discussion here.
Right. Okay.
Hey, everybody at the NSA, get off. We got a broadcast to do.
Okay, I'll get things set up so I can use my other phone in just a few minutes. So
okay.
All right. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, we'll call Gary. Well, that's been quite a discussion.
No, that was actually really good. With considering
yeah, we're gonna have to check out. Definitely got to check out Derek Tavares' website, www.stopthecrime.net, and check out the names of the companies.
Yeah, some of the companies that John was mentioning, I don't think anybody from the board on down might know anything that's going on, but the people that own those companies, they know exactly what they're doing.
We have Gary.
Hey, Gary.
Hi, how you doing this evening?
Hey, welcome to the Granada Forum radio program.
Glad to join you.
Sorry, we got into a little bit of heated discussion before you came on. I guess I should have got you out on 7 just so you could listen, but I thought you might want to just relax for about a half hour before we started picking your brain. Oh,
sure,
so what kind of news do you have for our listening audience, Gary, that they might be interested in?
Well, I think one of the important things is how the conspiracy is wedging in the ability for the psychiatrist to control who owns guns. And I think we can go back to the first head of the World Health Organization, and I've got some quotes on that. But go ahead and continue your combat for now. But
actually,
I can mention that, and then also the fact that a lot of the so-called free enterprise outfits have a web over them from the Mount Perelin Society, which has included Ludwig von Mises, but there are other troubling things that are associated with that. So I can bring that up later, but go ahead and continue so you can keep your audience engaged.
Well, you're actually not too far off where we started the conversation in the first place, and we just kind of moved off into the direction we were going. So let's pick it up from where you want to go with it, and we'll probably end up covering all the bases anyway. I mean, we're pretty, when we do our discussions like this, we're actually pretty good about it. So we'll let you take off, and then we'll throw in our 2 cents when we feel it's necessary.
Yeah, I'll try to call John.
Gary, the first thing you said was about the psychiatrist and the World Health deciding on whether we could have guns or not. So please continue.
exactly. Well, what I see even at the local county level is they're wanting to fund local mental health. And, of course, I live in Pinetistan, which is a communist village. It's pretty close to Cambodia. And I kid you not.
Is that far from Los Angeles?
Communist village.
Yeah, is that far from Los Angeles, Dan?
Well, if you've ever seen the movie The Prisoner with Rod McEwen, it's a British series, and there's a little coastal village in that TV series, and it's real pleasant, and everybody is honed into good behavior, and it actually is based on the British prison in Inverness, and that together with Tavistock and a few of the other British operations, we actually have that with Agenda 21 and all the different titles that Agenda 21 is given to. But Leon Panetta was generated in this area. He first campaigned for Nelson Rockefeller in the early 1960s, but at the same time, he was he ended up working for Kuchel, who was appointed by Earl Warren, and Kuchel was one of the Rockefeller Republicans. Later, he worked for the Nixon administration, and he worked with Kissinger to get rid of Nixon because Nelson Rockefeller was still wanting to be president. So they succeeded in bumping Nixon out and getting Gerald Ford, president, and they appointed Nelson Rockefeller vice president. And actually the guy that stood before Congress to explain Nelson Rockefeller's income was J. Richardson Dilworth, a member of Skull and Bones. So in addition to that...
No, the hell you say.
What was that?
I said, the hell you say.
Oh, Richard, anytime you're ready.
No, I was going to say, that's what you say when, that's a very sarcastic remark saying, right, really?
Oh, okay.
Are you kidding?
I'm just asking, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But anyway, from there, Panetta left Washington, D.C., and he stopped at the Governor Winthrop Rockefeller's house in Arkansas because he wanted to, whatever his future career was, he wanted to have his support. And, of course, the governor of Arkansas was considered by some as Bill Clinton's father, and he had the largest pornography collection in the world, supposedly at that time. But later, Leon Panetta worked for John Lindsay, the mayor of Chicago, and John Lindsay, not only a Rockefeller Republican, but he came from one of the four secret societies out of Yale. When Leon Panetta ran for Congress in the 1970s, he had the support of Hugh DeLacy, and Hugh DeLacy is a communist spy that has links with four different communist cells, and that would be Ware, Perlow, Silvermaster, and Sorge. I'm hearing a phone ringing on my end. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to grab John back in. You wanted me to call this phone.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
just
anyway,
ignore it. Just ignore it.
Sure. This Hugh DeLacy, they celebrated his political activity in the local community here, and they had communists from all over the place, including the son of Alva Bessie. Alva Bessie was considered by the House Committee on Un-American Activities as one belonging with the KGB in creating espionage cells. So his son was here. His name was Dan Bessie. He was one of the co-chairmen for Fair Play for Cuba, and he used to teach Marxism down on Arlington there in Los Angeles. So anyway, Leon Panetta, when he was congressman, was sending military and policy information to Hugh DeLacy when he was a congressman.
Okay, I hope all of you forward those articles that I sent out to you today. This is John W. Spring signing off.
I haven't seen I haven't opened up some articles here, but anyway, if they're looking for collusion,
I did not, and I won't be able to send out anything until tomorrow.
John,
but
John, you're really kind of breaking up a lot. So
if you will, Elaine, if you will give that to me again, I'll try to get it out to you tomorrow.
Hey.
Don't worry. I dropped them. I don't know what was going on there.
Yeah, I have no idea what that was either.
Yeah.
We got a multi-line here. Should I continue?
Anyway, go ahead, Gary. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Anyway, Leon Panetta, like other appointments that Obama did, that were outright Marxist, always had the support of the huge foundations. Leon Panetta founded an outfit called California Forward, and now they're expanding across the country. It's a very successful lobby, the most powerful lobby in California, and you guys should really know about it. It's funded by the Irvine Foundation, Commonwealth, which is the Bohemian Grove, the Packard Foundation, and Haas. And they have lobbyists in Sacramento, at your local county, and at your local cities. And they partner all the time with the League of California Cities and hundreds of other, left-wing organizations. And they are getting in the swing with Indivisible, which is the organization that is connecting with like ACLU and Black Lives Matter and Brown Berets for a revolution similar to the Arab Spring or the Color Revolutions. All this activity is ongoing, and you should subscribe. Everybody listening should subscribe to California Forward. They'll update you on their activity, but it's a very powerful force, and I don't see anybody addressing it.
Where are they getting their financing from? I mean, you have something that big. There's got to be a lot. Multi-million dollars of financing. So you said foundations. What foundations are financing them?
Yeah, again, that was Packard, Irvine Foundation, Haas, and the Commonwealth Club, and there's probably scores of others. You can go onto their website, and they'll tell you what they're doing. They're pretty slick, and of course they partner with ICLEI, which is a front for the World Bank and UN, and they have. They send out speakers such as Fred Keeley, who head the California Assembly, and he does a Delphi technique with all the wires set up so that people can, monitor, their approval.
The only reason I asked you about the foundations is because the ones that you had mentioned, I don't think I've ever heard of them before. But I mean, are there some bigger ones that are getting behind even those foundations, or is it just strictly those?
Oh, those are very heavy duty. David Packard was one of the original members of the Rockefeller's Trilateral Commission together with Zygmunt Brzezinski. The Irvine Foundation, the head of the Irvine Foundation was James Irvine.
Now you're mentioning names that I've heard of before, so now I can relate.
Yeah, the head of the Irvine Foundation is now in charge of Associated Press. And they also have summer camps in which journalists go to, and those are funded, where they preach global warming and other types of national issues that benefit the multinationals.
Yeah, also known as money-making schemes.
Yeah, what they want to do is, of course, make a carbon credit for every person and your use, and whether you're benefiting them or consuming an unallowed amount of energy will determine your lifespan. So, but the other thing I was mentioning was the fact that they're manipulating the ability to own guns over to mental health facilities and mental health checks. And I think people should remember that it was Brock Chisholm who was head of the World Health Organization. And one of his quotes, he says, "To achieve world government, it's necessary to remove from the minds of men their individualism, their loyalty to family, national patriotism, and religious dogmas." So, and he also said that the reinterpretation and eventual eradication of the concept of right and wrong, they are the belated objectives of nearly all psychotherapy. And again, he said, if the race is to be freed from its crippling burden of good and evil, it must be the psychiatrists who take the original responsibility. So, these psychiatrists have been globalized. Their training, if you've ever read their newsletters or magazines, you'll find that they fit right into the global pattern. So you're considered mentally ill unless if you're a nationalist, if you have a faith, if you believe in family, and if you atone to the rigors of right and wrong. So these are not the guys, and I see some of the Second Amendment people falling for this because they don't know the background of the manipulation by the psychiatric industry in being limiting for them. They think that mental health is common sense and not being in a padded cell. No, it means that you, as a Second Amendment advocate, in their consideration, according to the World Health Organization and Dr. Brock Chisholm, you're mentally ill and you shouldn't have a gun. So it's just having a gun itself is mental illness. Now, a couple of days ago, I don't know if you remember that at the CPAC meeting, Mona Sharon was criticizing Donald Trump and was booed off of stage. But a lot of people don't know that she's part of a group that's called the Ethics in Public Center that was founded by Ernest Lefevre. And he was a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, and he had worked for Hubert Humphrey. And it was Ronald Reagan that also endorsed Hubert Humphrey. And in fact, you can find the TV commercial of Ronald Reagan supporting Fabian socialist Hubert Humphrey, along with Jeane Kirkpatrick. Are you still there? Testing 1, 2. Oh,
yeah, we're still here. We're just listening.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, we're fascinated.
I thought I was talking into the emptiness here.
No, we're fascinated by this, so we're letting you have all the time you need.
Okay. Well, good. If people have a pen and pencil, they can go directly to a lot of this information, which they can become the strategist and the carriers that Paul reveres. But they can find the Ronald Reagan promoting Hubert Humphrey, and he sounds as sincere and so forth as he did when he was promoting conservatism, which he never, his talks were great, but his actions left a lot to be desired. But this Mona Charen, she was a speechwriter for Nancy Reagan. Her articles appear in National Review, and of course, remember, National Review had that one cover in which all the people were the Never Trumps, and she was one of the Never Trumps. She also received a Brendel Award for her writing, Brendal, and that award is funded by Rupert Murdoch, who still remains a hardcore globalist. This Eric Brendel went to a 10 schools admission organization, and people should write that down. It'll be a key to understanding a lot of the conspiracy. It's a group of schools in New England area, and they usually pre-process people that are pulled into the various secret societies at Yale or the Porcelain Club at Harvard and places like that. And many of them end up working for the New World Order, either as ambassadors or whatever around the world.
Now, are you talking about the same National Review that was William Buckley's organization?
William Buckley, of course. Yeah, William Buckley was Skull and Bones. And,
right.
He was. You go back, and he suggested even at the beginning of the so-called, the communist and Cold War, the late 40s and up to the mid-50s, he was advocating a socialist, strong government as a resistance to, the communist threat overseas. Right. Although he certainly knew better because it was his other fellow fraternity members, such as Harriman and all those people that were funding, the Soviet Union and the Eastern Bloc in order to create the resistance of NATO and their ability to create a European Union.
Right, and it's really interesting to me how Buckley was always held up as a major conservative icon, and then when you actually dig into the guy a little bit more, you're like, well, maybe he's really not. Because he was such a New World Order guy, and when you really do find out, I mean, I really do suggest people do a little bit more research on the guy than just what the media is telling you, because the media doesn't really tell you anything, not unless you're alternative media. But I mean, the guy was just he's like the Will Crystal of his day, or Bill Crystal of his day. Bill Crystal, if anybody doesn't know who he is, he was one of the guys who was part of the Project for a New American Century, which basically said that our economy can't survive unless we continue attacking the entire world. So,
yeah, well, Bill Crystal was the son of Irving Crystal. Bill Crystal's a member of the Bilderberger Society. Irving Crystal was a CIA operative, and he received CIA money. And in England, during the end of the war, I guess, he ran a magazine called Encounter. And he did that with somebody, Bill, I can't think of his whatever name. But anyway, it was funded by the CIA, and they were supporting the British Fabian socialist government. The CIA was. And, of course, the CIA was created by William Donovan, who went to England to learn how to set up a covert agency. So you've got the involvement with the English going all the way back to Cecil Rhodes, and there's really been not too much difference. We've had Cecil and Patrice Webb, founders of the British Fabian Society, funded by Rhodes, meeting in the United States with what's his name? He's the one that incorporated the Skull and Bones. And he was, for a while, also the chancellor of the California school system. And I'll think of his name in a minute or two. But
recently or a while ago?
Oh, a while ago.
Oh, okay.
In fact, if you read Dr. Anthony Sutton's book, America's Secret Establishment, it'll mention that he wrote to his sister, the Skull and Bones head of the California school system, that he got out of California just in time. Even the socialists in San Francisco were upset with this guy because, of course, all the railroads and so forth were funded by Jacob Schiff. He was funding the through Rothschild money,
right.
E.H. Harriman's railroads and the Southern Pacific, and they had just been looting the lands and expanding their monopoly. Right. And I guess the Grange, which is kind of like the farmers trying to save themselves, but they kind of moved towards the socialist end. But they had a reasonable gripe. But anyway, in his letter to his sister, he was concerned that they were, the whole thing might blow up, I think is what he said. But this Brindle guy actually was, which these awards are named after, and the awards again were developed by Rupert Murdoch, and they've been given to people like Mona Charen. And anyway. Another person that received that award was Charles Krauthammer, who is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations.
Yep.
And Charles Krauthammer is on Fox. He was a speechwriter for Walter Mondale. Walter Mondale was also one of the campaign guys working for him, was Leon Panetta. So, in fact, Krauthammer says, being born one generation too late, working for Mondale was the closest I could get to being a Trotskyite, which, as you know, is the royal road to neoconservatism, unquote.
Right.
So, all you have to do is a little reading, and it's different. People should not trust Fox or all these phony counterfeit organizations that pretend to speak for them because they're tamed.
If anybody really wants to see a real example of what neoconservatism has done, I mean, you don't even have to look at Bill Kristol because he's pretty transparent anyway. And, you know, a lot of the other talking heads that are on television, look what happened with the Tea Party. I mean, I know people that had started the Tea Party when it first came out, and it was a grassroots movement when it first came out. And in the rank and file, there are still a lot of those grassroots people, if they claim themselves to be Tea Party. But the establishment took it over and said, we are the Tea Party. By the way, here's Sarah Palin. She's leading it. Oh, well, she failed. Here's the next person we want to put up. Well, they didn't do so good. So, but they keep saying the establishment took that whole movement over and declared themselves to be the Tea Party so they could still control it. And that's what the neoconservative movement had done, and they're still controlling. If anybody still believes that there's a real difference between the Democrats and the Republicans, you know, the neoconservative and people like Bill Kristol and some of the other people that we have been mentioning, they are not. They are globalists. They are part of the New World Order. They have been pushing this stuff for forever. And all you got to do is go read it. Go read Project for a New American Century. And if you really want to read a Project for a New American Century and understand it, read the report from Iron Mountain too, and contrast it with each other, because they're just flip sides of the same coin. They pretty much are saying the exact same thing, and it's all leading to this not just a one world government, but a world in conflict that doesn't need to be.
Well, we have to remember, too, that the Georgia Guidestones Protocol is over us all. And they're looking at eliminating some 6 billion people. And this runs into the Club of Rome and all the, the interchanging directorates of the Bilderbergers, Trilats, Club of Rome, and right on down to through your foundations and through your media. So they are working up for, what's around here. I live in the area where there's strawberry fields and things like that, and so they're bringing in tens of thousands of people from Mexico with no support. They're bringing their families. All of the burden is being put on the people that are paying taxes and the citizens here, and they're breeding like crazy in order to convert and destroy the country.
Yeah, it's Cloward and Piven. It's trying to burden the welfare system and the tax system so badly that it's going to eventually collapse. I mean, California is going to be a model of that pretty soon. So, just
a few years here, the pensions will it used to be, I think it was 5-to-1 paying pensions, and in 3 or 4 years it's going to be 1-to-1.
Right. Well, then you also people got to realize. I mean, I don't know how many people have been paying attention to California news in and of itself, but even Dianne Feinstein was not considered far left enough to get the Democratic state Democratic Party's endorsement this year. Neither was Nancy Pelosi. So it really does tell you where we're going. And the only problem I see, because I've dealt with the Republican Party here, is I'm not seeing a difference. And like we were touching on before, it really is just a divisive tactic to have the Republicans and the Democrats controlling everything. And if you're running as an independent saying, hey, I got a better idea, they don't want to hear from you.
Well, you can go back to Hoover, the Hoover Institute, and all the carrying on there, and then the Skull and Bones group that nominated Wendell Willkie, and then Dewey, and you can go right through the whole thing, right up to Goldwater, where actually it was California that knocked them off track, kind of like Trump surprised the pundits this last time. He's better than the person that was going to be in there, but he's so surrounded, and we always hope for the best. But his 2 kids went to the 10 school admissions organization, And I wouldn't mind my own kid going if he had a heads up and knew what the hell it was. And the same with Hillsdale College. You know, Hillsdale College is run by Buckley. It was
right, and yet that's being touted by like a lot of the so-called conservative talking heads. It's like Hillsdale College is really where you need to learn about being a conservative.
No, that's
I think it's also learning to speak about truth and freedom as well, Nick.
Yeah, well, I wish they would, but I've got some of their publications, and I'm not really impressed by them. Anyway, we're going into a break, so...
We'll be right back. Stay tuned with more Gary and Nick and myself and Bob and John. And we'll be right back for the Granada Forum Radio program. Ladies and gentlemen, hold on. This is Revolution Radio.
You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Welcome back to the Granada Forum Radio program. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Revolution Radio. And we are at freedomslips.com.
Hey, John, you're
I'd
not
like to
muted
give a little
right
background
now.
on Hillsdale College, if I could.
Go right ahead, Gary.
Yeah, knock yourself out.
Yes, Richard. Yeah. The Hillsdale College has really been a pickpocket bonanza for the globalists. They mail out a free monthly folder or article. It goes to 3.7 million people in their publications for their whole period of time. They've never mentioned Trilat, Bilderberger, Council on Foreign Relations, or anything about secret societies. And a lot of their contributors have been numerous Trotskyites and members from the League for Industrial Democracy, the Sidney Hooks and Gene Kirkpatricks and Midge Deckners, etc. The longtime head of the Hillsdale College was George Roche III. That's R-O-C-H-E. And he belongs to a secret society called Mont, M-O-N-T, Pellerin Society, P-E-L-E-R-I-N. Now, the Pellerin Society was founded in 1947, and it included attendees such as John Clapman, a top official from the Bank of England, Ludwig Erhard, director of the World Bank, Ludwig von Mises, and Walter Lippmann. Now, Walter Lippmann had been in the OSS since the early 40s, and the same year that the OSS changed to the name of CIA, Walter Lippmann was in the CIA. I mean, he also attended the founding of this secret society. And pardon me. The head of the Hillsdale College was a member of the Mount Pellerin Society. And here's an article that I'm reading where the prominent president of Hillsdale College, George Roche III, allegedly conducted a 19-year affair with his daughter-in-law, who was the mother of his grandchild and an employee of the college. And it turns out that he was doing his son's daughter, and she ended up putting a barrel of a gun behind her ear and killed herself. And they were concerned about the succession, and so they wouldn't lose continuity in keeping their college going. And so they composed a committee that was of three different individuals. One of them was Skull and Bones William F. Buckley. The other is William J. Bennett. And you were talking earlier, William J. Bennett is part of the Project for a New American Century. He was also part of Empower America, of which one of the Charles Koch was. Charles Koch has funded a number of organizations like Cato that doesn't believe in borders. Anyway, the Tavistock network out of London, it touches not only the Hillsdale College, but Heritage, the Hudson Institute, Esalen, Stanford, the Trilateral Commission, and the Ditchley Foundation. But anyway, the Hillsdale College is really a sinkhole, and they've, because of their presentation and most of the conservative broadcasters praise it because usually there's some, mealy-mouthed principles that are put in there, and that's to attract all those people across the central United States and farmers that are looking to leave their fortune to some place or to send their kid to some place good, and they suck it up. So when those kids come out of there, they know nothing about the secret societies, the Federal Reserve, or any of the stuff that's going on.
Well,
I would have no aversion to having my own son go there, but with a heads up from somebody like me that would warn him. And the same is true with the 10 Schools Admission Organization. That would he'd be able to learn a lot about how the world works, but he's got to know ahead of time so to protect himself. But right now, Hillsdale College is the rabbit running around the racetrack, having the hounds run after it, and they're receiving the benefit of all the bets that are placed on the dog race.
Right, and that was one of the things I was going to kind of touch on because I hear people like Mark Levin, which I have a modicum of respect for, but not a hell of a lot. You got guys like Sean Hannity, who's got a tremendous audience and whatever. They bow down and they run to the hills and shout from megaphones about the benefits of Hillsdale College. And I've read Imprimis. For some reason, somebody had signed me up and they sent me their newsletters. And I was not impressed by them very much at all. And
this is Nick here. I'm sorry if I'm interrupting. I wanted to mention that regarding Hillsdale College, I get their mailings every month. I've been getting them.
The Imprimis ones?
I'm getting them for years.
Yeah, they're not that good. I'm not impressed by them.
And I've been getting them for so many years, and they talk a good line, but through the years and being in this battle for so long, I've kind of learned how to judge a book by its cover, and just something the way it's laid out, something about it just doesn't suck me into even reading it. I save them, I stash them away, but I never read them. Gary, I wanted to mention a couple things that you brought up tonight. First off, John Lindsay, you mentioned, was the mayor of Chicago. You meant New York, right?
Yeah, New York.
Okay. All right. I did hear you say Chicago, and I knew that was a slip of tongue. Now, what I wanted to just mention in a little more detail, you brought up William F. Buckley, who was probably right after the Goldwater campaign when I was in my mid-teens. Young Americans for Freedom, which was to a large degree William F. Buckley's gig. That was my first real exposure to hardcore so-called conservatism after the crushing defeat of Barry Goldwater, which of course left a lot of us devastated, including my parents, who weren't as conservative as I was, but they were conservative enough to not want Lyndon B. Johnson.
You realize you're dating yourself pretty good here, right?
Yeah. Dated material, no question about that. But this is what I wanted to take you back to in 1970. And I did learn the truth about William F. Buckley as I went along. In 1970, I was attending Billy James Hargis' American Christian College in Tulsa, Oklahoma at the time. And I'll never forget, during that campaign, when James Buckley, brother James, was running for senator in New York, and he was running on the Conservative Party ticket. And he was running against a liberal Republican named Goodell.
And can I make a guess? Let me try a guess here. He said that the Bilderberger Society does not exist to one of his constituents, and both he and his brother, Buckley was members. But go ahead with your story.
Not a bit surprised. But here was the role of Spiro Agnew in getting James Buckley in. And of course, at the time when Buckley won a plurality, over liberal Republican Goodell and Democrat Abe Beam. Buckley squeezed in, and we were all joyous. Oh, wow, isn't that amazing? In New York, we got a conservative in there. Well, I was still pretty young then, but I ultimately realized what had taken place and what was going on there. During the campaign, Vice President Agnew, who was viewed by virtually everybody as to the right of Nixon, when in reality, when he ran for governor of Maryland against a conservative Democrat, Agnew was running as a liberal Republican. So, but as a vice president, somehow he became conservative. He injected himself into that campaign with Buckley, Goodell, and Beam, and attacked Goodell, attacked him big time. And what that actually did was it lowered the stature of Goodell. What was his first name? Richard, I think. Anyway, it lowered his stature. So a number of Republicans left him, deserted him, and went over to Buckley. And also what it did, it had the dual effect of pulling a lot of Democrats out of Beam's camp and voting for Goodell out of sympathy because they hated Spyro Agnew so much. And looky, Buckley squeezed in. It worked. A bonesman.
Yep.
They know how to play that game really well.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I've
the
watched
federal
him
court out of
do it
Washington,
here in
D.C.
California. I've watched him do it here in California. I'm watching him do it in Wisconsin, where I've actually had one of the people from the state Republican Party say, we don't get involved in the primary elections. It's like, yes, you do. Absolutely, you do. And they refuse.
Yeah, well, California, it was Charles Munger is the one that took over.
Oh yeah,
Central Committees up and down the state.
I was there when he bought the Republican Party. I mean, I saw it happen. I know exactly who runs the Republican Party, especially here in Los Angeles, because I was a member of the Central Committee for the Republican Party of Los Angeles County. So was Wendy, and we saw this happen, and we saw all these people come in. On the libertarian side with the Ron Paul movement, they got in. They spent a lot of money trying to keep us out. We got in anyway, and they just tore us up every single chance they got it. Every chance that they had, they called us out of order. They made sure that we never got a voice on anything. They targeted a friend of mine, a personal friend of mine, for the next election for the Central Committee, and they got their way because Charles Munger bought the Republican Party, and I know exactly how he did it. And if you want, I'll go into detail about it. But I don't think we really want to do it here because I want to give our time to our guest. But no, I've seen what the establishment Republicans will do. And and then you got so many people out there for years. I remember pushing William Buckley as my God, he's such a great conservative. And then when I read into it, it was just kind of like, well, no, he's really not.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think your lesson. It's too bad because the final deadline for filing for office is the 3rd, which is tomorrow, which means nobody can get geared up now. And I feel real bad. I've been a advisor to Ed Griffin's Freedom Force for 4 years. But the problem is that he hasn't acted at all. I don't know whether it's his age or what, but one of his draws has been don't complain about City Hall, be City Hall. Right. And they only had one short presentation about politics, and it was just it was complete ignorance of the ground game. what goes on. I mean, it was bumper stickers and billboards and, that kind of stuff, not knowing all the things that, go on, that it's a rough and tumble arena, and that you've got to be alert, 360 degrees. You got to look in front of you, behind you, and around you. You've got to, know.
And I think that was what caught a lot of the libertarian movement with the Ron Paul people. What caught them off guard when they finally did get in, they didn't realize exactly how hard the establishment was going to come at them. Not especially when Charles Munger bought out because that's when Charles Munger bought out the Republican Party in California, right at that election, because there was so much turmoil in Los Angeles, especially. I mean, they were just ripe for a takeover, and he took advantage of it. And so,
what year was that? What election and what year was that?
That was in 2012.
Oh, yeah.
Well, just 2 years ago, they picked off the Central Committee in the Santa Cruz County and Monterey and some of the ones around here. But they're still active, and it's the same center. It's Firestone family, Charles Munger, the old Rockefeller outfits, George Shultz, Condoleezza Rice. Some of the same organizations that fund California Forward. Panetta actually controls the Republican Party. They're his protection team in the 3-county area up here.
Right, yeah. So it's the same all up and down the state.
You have to mute your phone when you're not talking. It's really bad.
Yeah, there's a lot of buzzing or static or something going on.
Yeah, that's all from Eric there.
Okay. But
all right, can I say one more thing before I yield?
Sure.
Sure.
Since we're on the subject, and then I'm just going to yield it all back to you guys and Gary. I'm going to lay back. The gubernatorial race here in California, I will say that I went out with a few people to El Camino College in Torrance, where they had the Republican debate, and we passed out a lot of the LaRouche literature. And it's amazing how many people there were just so glad to see us there. They understand that the British are behind the coup attempt. But I want to just give you my take on the gubernatorial election itself. I can do that in about 1 minute here. I was hoping that when Doug Osei got into the race, that he would stay in, and I'll tell you why. First off, no Republican is going to win in November. I normally don't like to say that. I don't like to program things, but I'm being realistic. I don't believe that that's going to happen this time around. The very worst possible person to get in there would be Gavin Newsom. He is wildly dangerous. We're in trouble if he gets in. So what I was hoping was that Doug Osei would split the GOP vote, so that under California's system, the 2 top vote getters would be Newsom and Villaraigosa. And as bad as Villaraigosa may be, he has come out earlier this year and said, look, let's work with Trump. Let's not be so quick to condemn him. He did say that, much to his credit. So if Newsom and Villaraigosa are the 2 top vote getters, yeah, you'd have 2 Democrats running, but you'd have a lot of Republicans voting for Villaraigosa to keep Newsom out. And that's what I was hoping to see. Now, Osei has withdrawn from the race. I don't know if that's going to happen anymore. I'll leave it at that. I've given you my view.
Thank you, Eric.
Well,
I'm just going to.
That's pretty scary, because I wouldn't vote for either one of those guys. It's so sick.
That's what I was going to say.
I would trust Villaraigosa if he paid me, and I mean that's just pretty.
It's like,
by the way, Nick, who is running for governor? Go ahead.
I have to vote for the less worst choice just to make sure that the worst choice doesn't get in. That's not a way to vote for somebody. I mean, come on. I mean,
who is the governor running, Gary, Nick, for California?
The only ones I know Villaraigosa tossed his hat in the ring, and I know that Gavin Newsom has, but since I've not been here and been paying much attention to California politics as like I used to, because I don't live here, so California can burn itself to the ground for all I care for the most part. and I can sit there and watch from 2,000 miles away. Those are the only two guys that I know. But the only thing I really do know is that there's no. I mean, I've got friends of mine running. I've got my friend David Hernandez, who's running for.
He's running for lieutenant governor. David is.
Yeah, he's not.
And Roxanne is running against David Nunes.
Yeah, and she's not going to win. And the only reason they're not going to win is because they're running as Republicans. There's just no. It's not going to happen. I mean, I hate to say that way, but this is California. It's a one-party rule state. It's not going to happen. This is what socialism and communism is going to do, because they enacted that Proposition 14, where it's like the top two vote getters, and they know for a fact that it's going to be the one-party rule that's going on here. This is why they always get a supermajority. The Democrats always get a supermajority, but then they lose it because the people that they elect always end up getting indicted for some kind of crime or something. I mean, Leland Yee, who is one of the biggest anti-gun zealots that you could ever possibly have, got indicted because he was running guns. So go figure that one.
Well, one of the most dangerous people in the state of California is its Attorney General, and that's Xavier Becerra. And he was part of one of Wasserman's spy rings that the Pakistani spies did their technical work through. And he is vicious, and because he's the state attorney general, it means that the crimes can be committed in Oakland or Santa Cruz or L.A., and there is no recourse. The Brown Act will never be used against any of these people that are robbing the people blind. And you know, the threats and the shutting down of free speech, which we've had up here. We've had Granges have to shut off speeches from regular organizations that were initiated by two of the supervisors in Santa Cruz. They threatened that they'd be sorry if they allowed the speech to concur, and that's Freedom Forum. It's not Freedom Force, but Freedom Forum, who had been running speeches and guests and films for over a decade. And they moved over to another Grange, and they were told that something might happen to their property. These are actual sitting Board of Supervisor members. So, I mean, and of course the sheriff has received donations from 4 of the 5 Board of Supervisors. So nothing's going to happen here, and this is really a red Chinese state as we sit here now.
I wouldn't even call it
Chinese. I'm going to get a word in right now,
Russian,
because I'm not going to get it any other time. There is one gubernatorial candidate who is running as a Republican this time instead of an independent, and that is Robert Newman. Now, I would encourage you to look up the name Robert Newman. He holds a doctorate in political psychology. He is really very astute on California from north to south, east to west. He's very concerned about the corruption in Sacramento, and he is getting involved in the 51st state movement because he's aware of the corruption. So keep his name in mind as you will be getting more information about New California, the 51st state. Thank you very much.
Yeah, boy, that phone sounded really bad. I don't know.
Yeah, it really did.
Who was that?
This is John. I'm still learning how to use this 21st century gadgetry, so my apologies. Are you able to hear me fairly clear now, or?
You got to get one of those old Army phones to call on, the radio packs.
Is that the kind you wind up? But isn't it the kind you wind up, Nick?
Yeah, the ones that you wind, you wind them up and you can talk.
I remember those as a kid, just like I remember the tin can fishing line phones that we would devise,
Yeah. So John, who do you recommend for governor?
Robert Newman.
You think he's way better than Villaraigosa?
Oh, definitely. Definitivamente for those of you that speak Spanish. I would not go via Ragosa. That's just my opinion. And of course,
I would never vote via Ragosa if you paid me. Yeah, I hear you.
This is like, we really can't understand much.
To give you an idea how well informed Robert Newman is, he is aware of the negligence that Newsom has had during his dutyship as Lieutenant Governor of California regarding Oroville Dam.
Is there a way you can hold on, stop. Is there a way you can call back, or we can call you back, because I can't understand a thing you're saying right now.
Yeah, okay. I didn't know if it was just my hearing here, but it's really rough.
Yeah, no, it's terrible here.
No,
I think we're probably losing listeners.
If I see the word mute, does that mean I'm on mute, or...
if you give your number, we can have Rich call you back, because I can't understand anything you're saying, and it's just really, really terrible. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, the information that he had and what he was saying was really, really good, but it doesn't do anybody any good if we don't know what he's saying.
Yeah, it's very hard on us. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was.
Back one more time about Becerra. The current Attorney General.
Do I sound any better now?
Oh, much.
Hello?
Much better.
Becerra, I witnessed this a few years back. Well, it was quite a few years ago now, when Becerra and Villaraigosa were running against each other for mayor of Los Angeles. Okay, I was at an event. And I wasn't pro Villaraigosa necessarily. I was there at the event, and it was Villaraigosa's event, and I couldn't believe it. Becerra forced his way onto the stage from the back, and he had to be rebuffed because he wasn't invited. They had to tell him, "Look, you're not invited here. Please get off the stage." And he insisted that he had to say one thing or make a show or something. It was weird, but he was rebuffed in front of a whole crowd of people, and I'll never forget that. That tells you something about the guy. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that. I was there and I saw it.
Oh, please! You're gonna find nothing but arrogance in every single politician running for any major state office. I mean, look at in California, look at Kamala Harris. I mean, she runs out and she became the Attorney General of California, shot down somebody's legitimate claim to having a concealed weapons permit, and became the darling of the left wing. She took over Barbara Boxer's place as a senator in Congress, and all she does is yell at people, trying to say, "You're not hearing me. You do know I'm a black woman, and I'm going to yell at you, so you're going to understand what I can say." And that's really what she does. But what nobody ever really talks about in the mainstream media is the fact that she slept her way to the top. She had an affair with, I think it was the mayor of like San Francisco or something, just to get her political credentials up higher up on the level and move herself up the chain. So nobody's ever going to talk about that, but she'll talk about women being sexually assaulted. It's like, hey, you slept your way to the top, so I don't want to hear anything about you at all. And nothing, not a thing. And she can come back at me on that one all she wants to, if she even bothers to listen to the show. But, if she wants to challenge me on that one, I dare her to, because I got, I can nail her on every single one of them, because everybody knows that she did. So
well, I think for people wanting things to do, that it seemed to us and all the different other news sources, I believe right now probably the best bet is if they join actually the John Birch Society for 6 or 9 months, because it will give them some type of That'll give them basic education, and they're safe. They pretty well check their information. They're solid enough to be able to trust. And from there, you will graduate, and you'll be able to make your decisions and test what needs to be done. But rather than being bumped around with lies and all kinds of other information, they'll give you a basic training that is really worthwhile. And for people that are looking I encourage them to do that.
Yeah, I'm not even going to say, if they're not so inclined to join the John Birch Society. I've been a member. Their headquarters are really close to where I live because I've been there. They have a library that's amazing. I even asked them when they took me on a tour if I could just sit there for a year and just read every book that they have. And they went, maybe not, But if...
They should have been honored.
Oh, my God, yeah. But if you really want to, even if you don't join the John Birch Society, research the John Birch Society. Learn all the stuff that they have, that they've posted online. Listen to Robert Welk, especially that 1954 speech that he gave. You can find on YouTube.
They do have a free newsletter they can sign up to also.
Sure.
And I think the newsletter comes out every couple of days or whenever something's breaking. And it's pretty trusted news.
Yeah, subscribe to their magazine, The New American, whatever. They have better information than the mainstream media will ever have. And it's more accurate than the mainstream media. The only reason that they got cut down, and I actually was talking to a whole lot of people at John Birch, they got cut down because of the communists in California. They got tore apart because of them, and it wasn't even because of that little rag, that communist rag here in California that published the article that said, well, they're nothing more than a communist front, trying to do that a reverse psychology type of thing. It was because Time magazine picked it, ran with it nationally. And it really damaged their reputation, and they've been trying to come out of it ever since for like 60 years, or 50 years, or 60 years now. And the thing is if you talk to the people from John Birch, and the people from, I know the guy here in California. I know the people at the headquarters in Appleton, Wisconsin. They are just not what you would call communists. As a matter of fact, they are probably the most people you would call the anti-communists,
of course,
on the face of the planet. And
they definitely got labeled and stereotyped by them. Yeah. Yeah,
they've been sounding the alarm against communism more than Joe McCarthy has. They just haven't used Joe McCarthy's tactics. And
Joe McCarthy is a hero, and in fact, you'll find out that. Information that came out in 2005 that Alan Dulles had broken into his office and planted material in Joe McCarthy's operation there. Joe McCarthy was, in fact, his tactics were scared of. In 1950, I think he knocked out about 60 United States U.S. senators. So McCarthy's tactics are pretty much like Trump's, where he's plain spoken and charging directly. He's not being a sissy or a pussy about talking about what's going on. And what they fear most is Joe McCarthy. Also, the John Birch Society, the California State Senate, in 1963. Had a House committee or a state committee on un-American activities, and they did investigate the John Birch Society, and their conclusion was that it was not anti-Semitic or racist, but diligent people, trying to do a good job figuring out what's going on with the communists.
Right, but
infiltrated or attended a lot of their meetings. So that. Don't be afraid to join anything because of the critics, because you're going to get that.
But the Southern Poverty Law Center says that they are. The Southern Poverty Law Center says that they're a hate group.
I know. I know. I know. So I think I'm on the list too. Didn't they get rid of the un-American activity activity. Didn't they give? We had that in America.
But here's the thing: the House Un-American Activities Committee.
Yeah.
Which everybody says
you're using their phrase.
Right.
The House Committee on Un-American Activities.
Well, here's the thing that really cracked me up the most when they kept talking about Joe McCarthy heading the House Un-American Activities Committee. And I've argued with this with a few people, and they said, well, Joe McCarthy, he was head of the House Un-American Activities Committee. And I said, no. Yes, he was. Well, no. Senator Joe McCarthy was not in charge of the House Un-American Activities Committee. Well, yes, he was. Okay, let me beat my head against the wall for a second, and then let me say this to you again. Senator Joe McCarthy was not head of the House Un-American Activities Committee. Well, yes, he was. Okay, obviously you didn't take civics, and I'm done talking to you.
So who was?
Well, here's the thing. A senator is not in charge of any House committee. They're the two separate branches of Congress.
Right, that's only Congress.
So, but they don't understand that. All they hear is Senator Joe McCarthy and House Un-American Activities Committee, and they figure they're one and the same thing because people don't research and they don't understand, and it's not taught in schools. That's the worst thing, too. It's never taught school. The structure of our government is set up. The three branches. We got in Congress, we have the Senate, and we have the House.
Right.
And then we have the judicial branch and we have the executive branch. But they never teach the separation, even in the House, even in Congress, that we have a Senate and we have a House of Representatives. So everybody thinks that when you say Congress, they think Congress and the Senate are two different things. No, it's Congress.
There was never a HELAC to begin with. It was House Committee on Un-American Activities.
Yes.
Which is and Gary, what you're referring to in California, I believe, was the Senate Internal Subcommittee, which was chaired, I believe, by State Senator Burns.
It was Hugh Burns, and in that same, in the 1949 House Committee, or California Committee, they had, I just searched so much on this telephone here. They had Marshall Davis, which was Obama's, supposed father, and it also had Hugh DeLacy, the main communist spy that Leon Panetta was a collaborator with. But that was under Jack Tenney, and anyway, I met Jack Tenney personally after his reign in the Senate there, and we had some interesting conversations. I can't even know. But why they were mad at McCarthy wasn't him going after the communists; it was going after George Marshall and the people at the top, the people that were working for Henry Stimson, Skull and Bones. Those were the powers and the pressure. The communists are just a tool of the the central bankers. And it's a free download. Read Senator Joseph McCarthy's America's Retreat from Victory, and you will end up with so much pride for this man that stood up against the world trying to get this information out. But America's Retreat from Victory, if there's people out there, just your computer and ask for the free download and read it, and you'll be amazed.
Well, I've said this too when we had Jordan Maxwell on our show a couple of times, that communism is it's like a very extremist form of capitalism, which is what the bankers are. And he was like, well, yeah, how come nobody else gets it? And this is what I think people don't really seem to understand is what real communism is. I mean, they can sit there and espouse the dictatorship of the proletariat all they want to, and equality and all of that, but they don't seem to realize that they're being pawns of the people that are really controlling everything, who are the bankers, who are the globalists and all of that. And
yeah, well, we've got too many people sitting in salons thinking this is a debate, and it's not.
Exactly.
It's not a debate. Some of you guys have been, fighting in the central committees and understand the skullduggery and all the dirty stuff that goes on in order to fight for your piece of freedom. And people have to get back into an aggressive mood. They can't sit there and choose because what they're being offered is chocolate, strawberry, or vanilla, but it's all owned by the same ice cream company.
Right. But here's the thing that, even when I was dealing with the Republican Party here in L.A., because we got shot down pretty good. Wendy even knows because she was part of that too. I mean, we got stomped on pretty hard. And for whatever reason, we could not get the average Joe on the street, who's going to work the 9-to-5 job every day, just trying to keep themselves going every day. How do you get them involved? Aside from like us, who I met Wendy through Ron Paul activism and things like that, which is why I got on this show in the first place. I mean, she's been doing this for forever, as far as I know. How do you get everybody else how do you light the fire under them as much as we have? Yeah, well, I've got a sit down for that, but it'd take 45 minutes to an hour to just start setting the parameters. But it would be pretty encouraging if you've got a handful of people. If you can sustain a group in say an assembly district and keep it about 16 members with 2 or 3 floating in and floating out just because of what happens, personality problems and illnesses and love affairs and everything else. But if you can keep a little less than 24 people, you can certainly take over central committees where you don't have an incumbent, which gives you credentials in the state convention, and you can also control who gets nominated for state senate, state assembly. We did it down here for all 3, Congress, state assembly, and state senate. So, you get the appointees for the central committees, and then we had a little card on the back. On the front of the card would have the individual member running for the central committee, and on the back side of the card would be the other, 5 in that particular district, 5 or 6 or whatever it happened to be. And they personally would give that to their friends, and you'd have the multiply effect. And you'd have some slogan or something to identify you with, with the good guys or whatever your issue, happens to be. But we did that a couple successive campaigns, and again, it's something you'd want to sit in the living room and lay out and show. Right. So it almost comes down to like a Bernays style of advertising. Make sure, get your message out there and get people involved, and make sure they stay involved. Well, you need the hardcore underneath just for the support of the candidates, right? And actually, you're going to be doing a lot of things that are going to seem counterproductive because the action is in the reaction, and the best example is Trump, rather than run away, from what's verboten, he used that as his entry. And anyway, well, that was actually pretty good. But some of us don't have the kind of financial backing that he does. I mean, I don't have $9 billion. I mean, I really wish. I don't even have $9, but much less 9 billion, 9,000, 900,000. There you go. I swear to God, if I had $9 billion, I don't think I would have been running for president of the United States. Well, you've got to be able to you have to craft copy that will be picked up. So the reporter, whether he likes you or not, he's going to write it down. And I had the magic of working with Anthony Hilder. So, when we got into, when I was in the East Room of the White House,
I could pull some of the phrases. You have to be prepared ahead of time for the attacks. And so saying something like, well, the Soviets get the wheat and the Americans get the shaft, there's not a reporter on earth that isn't going to write that down. You don't need a lot of money. You just need to be bold and stick it in their face and give them copy. You write the copy for them. And you let them attack you.
But hold on. But right now, you have a lot of mainstream media that's ignoring a lot of the stuff that they don't want to, and they have. Meanwhile, they're promoting this little putz from Florida, David Hogg, and they're putting him on a pedestal. And everything the guy says is gold is getting promoted all over the place. And there's nothing you can do about it because you're not mainstream media unless you're like us. Or you're like maybe InfoWars and Drudge or whoever else is actually going to put on a counterpoint for this guy. Because on mainstream media, the alphabets, ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, and CNN especially, there's no counterpoint. They will not do a counterpoint. And there's almost no way for anybody else to create a soundbite that's going to take off with them because they absolutely refuse to have it.
You don't use the national media for that. If you're going after an assembly district, you grab the yellow pages and you look up realtors. Okay, realtors. Every one of them has their email address and their phone number and everything else on there because that's the only way they get their clients. And because they're realtors, they belong to the church, they belong to a service club, they belong to the board of realtors. They do everything. And so by preparing a good 18 months before an event, you start hitting them with various things that'll burn them. You want the reaction. You want them to go and say, who is this? This is crazy. They're attacking the realtors. They're saying the realtors are no damn good because we support Agenda 21, and the UN says their goal is to abolish profit. So you attack the crap out of them, and you laud some of them, and you suggest that people don't list with people that don't support private property. You make it an issue. So that people will identify with that issue. You can do the same thing with the Bar Association, with the various church, the various service clubs. Many of the service clubs were very active in setting up the United Nations. The Kiwanis, the Rotary, especially. I mean, they're globalists. In fact, they're an extension of the UN. They got UN whatever credentials, but you can go. Most of them don't know a damn thing, but you can hammer them and tell them that all the local laws are being done by the United Nations, and these poor dumb son of a bitches in these clubs and churches don't know what they're talking about. But you're going to have to draw fire in order to overcome the la-di-da and the debate, and there's no sense running up against, in front of their tank or their wall. You create your own stream, and you get it close to them. If you put your material that your opposing candidate, say the central committee that's in existence or the people you want to get rid of, you pepper around their house, the two houses alongside and the three houses across the street, and all of a sudden they think everybody's got it. And, they don't know what to do. They think they have to explain themselves. We need to be on the aggressive all the time rather than responding to everything that they do.
Well, I also think
that was exactly the answer I was looking for. Perfect.
Exactly. One of the things. Go ahead, Nick. Want to finish?
No, go ahead.
I was going to say that in Florida, we know for a fact that the teacher said, "Hey, this wasn't a kid." She grabbed all these kids in the classroom, and she saw a guy with body armor and a helmet, and then grazed her. She shut the door. Unfortunately, he killed the teacher in the next room, who she was screaming at to close his door. But my thing too is that now that this isn't the kid, that this is a big red flag. They're talking about this is blaming on Trump, get rid of all the guns. This is, and especially this is what I don't understand, this is another Reichstag. This is nothing but a Reichstag. The rabbis of the United States, as well as pastors, need to stand up and say, look, this is propaganda, what is going on in mainstream media.
Yeah,
because this is going to have huge effects. I mean, it's having huge effects. And the fact that if they can do this, man, can you imagine what they're going to do next? And this is where the problem lies.
Well, I think this, again, is where to go. I understand when I had my son go to one of the church schools over here, they have a board of directors, and their phone numbers and emails and stuff are on the brochure and pamphlet. Those people can be communicated at. You look what's happening in South Africa with the genocide and the churches and the Christians and the whites being absolutely destroyed. There is nobody out there talking about that, and you can go after some of these outfits.
I did hear Alex Jones talk about that yesterday on his show, and they played back what the president or the head of the security says, that they want to get rid of all the whites and throw them off their property. And this is a very, very scary situation. He had another British journalist, I believe a European, a British journalist, on his show talking about that, Gary. So it was very, very frightening. They had apartheid, which was bad, and now they're doing the same thing. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's so scary I can't see straight. But there's lots of things going on.
Yeah, no, that's what the immigration is all about. I mean, we always fall into arguing about families or this and that and the jobs and everything else. Hell, this is a goddamn invasion of the United States with men of military age, and it's deliberate in order to overthrow the United States and dispossess the middle class, period.
Gary, these are children. These are children.
Please.
Yeah,
our
right.
country. They need protection.
And so people shouldn't be answering to those type of debates. Just jump over it. This is an attack. Go back to Vietnam, where the United States was shipping all the tongs from northern part of Vietnam into the South, and they doubled the population. So the people that were shipped down there had to steal the food, and the people that the food was being stolen from had to fight. That's exactly what they're doing to us right here, right now. It's the same damn formula that they're using in Europe. It's the same formula that they've used in places around the world. And we're looking at this as that they're separate issues. This is overthrow by the multinationals.
Yeah, here's the thing that really that kills me is because it's been done so many times. I mean, there's examples of it that have happened throughout. Let's just take recent history from 1900 up to 2000, whatever. How come? I mean, aside from the propaganda, how come nobody else is recognizing this? Outside of the propaganda part of it, they see it happening. They make their opinions apparent, but they don't do anything about it. I mean, look what happened look at what's going on with Sweden. Look what's going on with England. Look what's going on with France. They know what's happening, but they sit there and they passively accept it anyway, instead of actually doing anything about it.
Let me tell you this: a half a mile from here, there were two Cambodians. A man and his wife that went through the horrors of the murder. He ended up writing a book with an American so he could do it in English. I wept reading that book. 2 years ago, he took his family back to Cambodia because he says he doesn't want his kids growing up here. He sees everything that predated the revolution there happening here. This couple that went through the horrors of seeing their family killed here and there and everywhere, and what it took to get them out, they feel that they are safer in Cambodia than here in the United States, and that's why we're sleepwalking and we're not talking like it's real.
Yeah, I've talked to people who, in some of the very much meetings that I've been to with the Republicans, whatever groups there were a bunch of groups here around Los Angeles, and some of these people come from some of these Eastern Bloc countries. And they're telling us we're scared because we're seeing what happened to our country happening here now. And nobody in America gets it.
Well, that Sheriff Israel, I think, was talking to a Muslim mosque this year. And if you look up, I found online a January quote that they engaged a program called Promise, where they wouldn't record the violations and crimes of youth. They gave them up to three strikes. And one of them was a 13-year-old with a concealed weapon. Another one was with assault and battery. Another one was with theft. So that's why they say that the crime is down. But what this means is that all the wild people that have been brought in from the Middle East and God knows where are not being tagged with the crimes they're committing now. They're making them available as if, they opened the Bastille to help create the revolution. It's so damn clear. It's outrageous. We need some military people that understand this in our local volunteer groups, because this is a war. They've declared war against us. It's so clear, and we need to get together to do that. And again, the John Birch Society would be a quick study. I think people should do that, but they're going to have to go beyond that, and we're reaching that stage. So
right, and not only have they declared war against us, but now we have our own government trying to disarm the rest of us in a war that's against us.
Yeah. Well, we haven't had our government for a long time.
Right. Yeah. That's the other problem.
It's the multinationals. It's not the FBI looking out for you, or the president, or that was Xavier Becerra.
Yeah, that was one of the things, because you had mentioned Leon Panetta a while back in our conversation, and I still to this day, Jeff Sessions, who's now our Attorney General, had that Senate hearing, and he never had Leon Panetta arrested for telling everybody, by the way, our military is now under UN control.
Exactly, and Panetta was Department of Defense and the CIA, and he was funneling communists and multinationals in there, and nobody's touched him yet. Nobody said a word. And I've been I've been even calling the Birch Society, the editor of the New American. I've sent him 7 or 8, really condemning type things, and I'm still waiting for a phone call back. I've called them and sent them, a couple of missives. But to ignore what Leon Panetta is doing in creating this revolution is a crime.
Okay, Gary, we got to go. We're at the end of our time here.
We thank you for being on, Gary. God bless. Thank you.
Okay, news-expose.org.